Hey guys, I want to try to make a quick tutorial for you on how to make a knife maker's center scribe for scribing center lines down the edge of your knife blades. And this particular tutorial is actually going to be a step-by-step walkthrough, or otherwise known as a work in progress, to show you the various steps as I myself will go through them to make another one of these for myself. Now this particular center scribe is one that I made quite a while ago when I first started making knives, based off a fairly simple design that's available through many knife maker supplies. And this was just made using some various scraps and parts that I had lying around my shop, as will the one I'm about to make tonight. And for those of you who may not be familiar with what this is or how it works, it's a little more than just a simple marking gauge, and as I said, it's for marking center lines down the edge of your knife. As you'll see, I've already done on this one as an example. And what these are simply just to help you establish your primary bevels and keep everything centered as you're grinding your flats on each side of your knife. Now some people like the double line as I have. Some people actually do a single line straight down the exact middle of the knife to kind of keep things centered. Or if you're doing a chisel grind, you may even put just a single line on the far edge of one of these blades where you want your flat grind or hollow grind to stop when doing that type of grind. And the way you use this, very simple. You just put the flat of the knife blade against your base here. Scribe the entire length on one side. Scribe the entire length on the other. And if you have your point set at the correct height, as you can see, you'll get two perfectly parallel lines in the exact center of the knife blink the whole way down. And as far as construction and parts, it's very simple. There's really little to nothing to making this. And if I were to count all the parts, there's really just 4 pieces, 5 if you include the little set screw here, to make one of these. And what it is, as I said, just your flat stock or your flat base that your knife will ride against, your adjustable rod here to put your scribe point in, and then you have a set screw to hold your scribe point in place and a thumb screw to fix the height on your scribe point or your adjustable rod here. And how I made this one, like I said, I was just using scrap around my shop. This piece actually came out of a small machinist square that had fallen apart. The blade had come out. It was no longer useful to me. And the rod here was actually a bolt that I cut the head and the threads off of, and then I had the set screw and the thumb screw laying around in a parts drawer that I just tapped and threaded each piece for. And it's really just, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 holes to drill, 2 screws or set screws to put in place your point and your base. So I'm just going to walk you through the various steps here on how to make each part, and try to give you a couple different options that you can use in your own shop should you not have this particular type of material at hand. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here while I cut this off, and I'll kind of explain where I'm going and what I'm doing as we go along here. Alright, at this point I've gone ahead and cut my piece of flat stock that will make the base of my center scribe, and I've gone ahead and measured and center punched some holes for positioning the rod that will hold the carbide tip, as well as the thumb screw that will hold the rod in place. Now I didn't show the cutting or the squaring of this piece of steel, and I'm probably not going to show the drilling or tapping of the holes, as I think most of us know how to do that fairly well by now, and it'd be more or less a waste of time to include that in the video. But I will go ahead and go over the design features and aspects that are most important to this project, so that you guys can build your own in a similar manner. So what I've gone ahead and done after I cut my piece to length, this being 4 inches, by 2 inches wide by 3/8 inches thick. I went ahead and marked and center punched a hole directly in the middle of the 2-inch wide plate here, and about 1/2 inch in from the edge. And really your dimensions on your base aren't super critical, just as long as it's thick enough that you can drill and tap for your set screw for your adjustable rod, and wide enough that you're not going to be rocking back and forth when you're trying to scribe down the edge of your knife. In my experience, the 3/4 inch width on this original base was right there at the minimum limit that you'd want to go for one of these. As this one even itself tended to want to rock just a little bit as I was scribing and getting out to the end of the knife blade. So that's why I went with a wider base of 2 inches. You can go more, you can go less. That's really up to your discretion and what type of materials you may have on hand. Now, as far as the distance from the edge here, really the only consideration there is your thumb wheel. You want to make sure that you don't go too far towards the center, that whatever thumb screw, set screw, or whatever you end up using to fix your rod in place, you just want to make sure that you have plenty of space to screw that in and to touch the rod that's going through the hole there. This one I just happened to measure towards the end of the rod, as once I drill that, there'll be plenty of room to go into that hole. As far as thickness of your stock, you really just want to make sure that it's thick enough for whatever set screw you're using on the end there, that it leaves you enough material all around the hole to not be too weak or unstable. And as for length, really the only consideration there is that you have enough of a base to run what the widest knife you're going to be making is. Me, I rarely go over 1.5 inches to 2 inches wide, just as an example. This gives me plenty of room to scribe my blade without coming off the back side here, or have to worry about rocking off. Now, as for your rod, for this particular one, I'm actually going to use a piece of all thread, and I'll show you why towards the end of the build here. For my first one, I used a smooth shank rod, and as far as length and diameter there, that's really not so important either. It could be smaller, it could be thicker, bigger diameter. I have a lot of 3/8 stock lying around, so I went ahead and used that. Could be 1/4 inch if you're using a smaller scribe. Could be all the way up to 1/2 inch, even bigger if you want. Me, I think 3/8 is just fine for the 1/8 inch scribe point that I use. As you can see, that gives plenty of material all around the hole, and plenty of room for the set screw in the top. And as far as prep work on this, I just went ahead and center punched. Eyeballed the center there. It doesn't have to be perfectly center, just as long as it's going to meet your scribe point in the middle there. And I went ahead and center punched just a short distance down there, maybe 3/8 of an inch into the end of the all thread there. So what I'm going to do next is drill about an 1/8 inch hole through the middle here, and then a hole for whatever set screw or thread tap I can find that'll fit in there. I'll drill a 3/8 inch hole here for my rod, and then the appropriate drill and tap size for my thumb screw on this size. So stay tuned, and I'll show you when all the holes are drilled and tapped. Now we're going to talk about the final assembly of the centering scribe, as I've completed mine, and I'll talk about a couple different options that you can do as well, depending on what hardware or materials you may have on hand. This is just how I decided to finish mine based on what I had and my preferences. For instance, I went ahead and used a thumb screw for the set screw that fixes the rod into place, that allows your scribe to go in and out. as this gets adjusted quite a bit while I'm using it, depending on the thickness of stock that I'm using or how thin I want my edge to go. So that's more or less an added convenience. Though you can, of course, use a regular recessed set screw or a machine screw, such as I use for my Scribe. That'll simply mean that you need a screwdriver or an Allen key each time you want to adjust this for scribing a different size blade. Now for the Scribe itself, I simply used a machine screw to set that in place, although you could use a recessed screw if desired, such as I did on my first Scribe. I did this more for convenience, as I had the tap and the screw on hand. And you really shouldn't need to touch this screw until it comes time to sharpen that Scribe, which is, in my experience, very few and far between. Now, to show you why I used an all-thread rod instead of a smooth shaft, I wanted some method of fine-tune adjustment that was quick and easy, and this is what I came up with, just going ahead and threading a nut on the end of that, and that allows me to get very small increments if needed to really fine-tune my Scribe lines. For instance, if I want my lines just a hair closer together, I can turn this maybe a quarter of a turn, loosen this, push that back tight, tighten back up, and that will raise my Scribe point just ever so slightly in order to accommodate that. If I want to go higher, just back it off a little more, lower, just tighten it up a little bit. So that's just a real quick, easy way for a fine-tune adjustment. And that's more or less the completed Scribe. Like I said, set screw types, really not important. You can use whatever you have on hand. These I just used for convenience. And I have a very functional center Scribe that should scribe lines for many years to come. So any questions, comments, please leave them below. Thanks for watching, guys.